So up until just a little while ago, I had a totally different program planned for today. But I've run across a number of news stories, about a dozen. May not have time to share all of them. Some of these stories are going to make you angry. Some of these stories are going to be very encouraging. And some are going to leave you just scratching your head going, how can this be?
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
And welcome to the Tuesday edition of Truth to Ponder. I'm your host, Bob Bierman. Over the last several days, I've been feeling and I've been sharing with you something that has been building up for several weeks inside of me. And that is some good news is coming, I think, and I've been saying it for months, that I believe we're going to have a time of rest. I think the truth is going to come out on a number of fronts, not just in the vaccine and COVID world, but other things as well. I see some encouraging signs as those that seek to dominate your lives are beginning to recognize that their narratives are on the verge of collapse. And so they need to be starting to gin up another boogeyman, so to speak, that we can all hate equally to keep them, to keep their narrative of controlling us alive. COVID-19 may very well run its course. I'll be sharing some stories on that. But COVID-19 has also spurred some of the most insane activities by people that should have reason and common sense, people trusted by their people in their nations with authority. They have decimated that authority. They've overstepped their bounds. And as far as I'm concerned, in many cases, they are doing the work of the Antichrist on many levels. And I'm not just saying on the coronavirus front. I mean, I mentioned yesterday, Canada. You have a law now that is considering much of the Bible myth. And if you try to teach this myth to anybody, you could end up in jail. Freedom in Canada is eroding rapidly. And it happened because you put in leftists in charge of the company store, so to speak. You believe their lies of taking good care of you. They want to control you, not really care for you. They want to feed their ego, and they're feeding their ego off you and your life and your money. Now, I saw this kind of encouraging story. Came out late in the week, last week, and not many news sources are covering this. Of course, it would go against the narrative of ABC, NBC, MSNBC, CBS, and CNN. Of course, they're not going to give this a lot of coverage. Or if they do, they want to bury it in such a way that you don't notice it. And it's one of those stories that got dumped on Friday. And so when you dump a story on Friday, it helps bury the story. That's just a known fact in the news business. Well, a federal judge has dismissed the Federal Death Administration, commonly known as the Food and Drug Administration's proposal to only release 500 pages per month of statistics that were provided by Pfizer in order to license its COVID-19 vaccine. Now remember, that's the vaccine you still cannot get in the United States. And I have another story that'll dovetail into this just a little bit later that's going to really make your blood boil. See, the judge said instead of 500 pages per month, the court is ordering 55,000 pages per month. That'll take about 8 months for the world to see what was beneath the hood, so to speak, around, assuming there really were 450,000 pages of material. Now, I want you to remember, the FDA was able to, in like 100 and some odd days, go through all of those papers, all of that material, test and certify and say, yep, this vaccine is now FDA approved. They did that in 100 days. And now they're saying it's going to take 75 years or something like that to give you all the paper. In other words, we don't want you to know what Pfizer told us because you're going to find out what kind of frauds we really are here at the FDA. And I hope the truth comes out. So the FDA, there had been a group that wanted this buried, and the judge said no. The FDA had requested authorization that it only needed to compile or disclose 500 pages every month, and at that rate, it would take about 75 years to deliver all the papers. Now, look, I'm 67 years old. I don't think I'm going to be here to see that paperwork when I'm 140-something. So, the federal judge has mandated the agency to disclose all records at a rate of 55,000 pages a month. Now, we can't do that. Well, then how did you do everything in 100 days to fully approve and do this thing for Comirnaty, the new trade name for the Pfizer vaccine, the one that people believe they're getting when they're not? So this is some good news for a change on the COVID front, and let's hope that that ruling stands and that the information comes out. And I really believe that the tide is turning, and those that have controlled the narrative are about to find out the narrative is a runaway freight train, and it's not exactly what they anticipated. Now, let me share another story. I'm sure that some of you have already seen this. I've had a couple of emails from people, and I've already found this, and I read it, I think, the other day. This one really, over the weekend, I saw this, and I'm shaking my head. And I hope you are, too. The question I ask are these face masks that people believe, the magic mask that keeps COVID away? And look, even doctors' offices. I've got an appointment later this week on Friday, just the regular stuff that you get every year, your little annual checkup. And of course, your face diapering is required. All these COVIDiots and the mass COVIDians really believing that the face diaper protects you. And every study I've ever seen yet, every legitimate study over the past 2 years, and even those that go back further, all have the same conclusion: no effect. Now, I'm sure if you wore a hazmat suit and some $200 properly fitted mask, it might help, like a respirator, these expensive ones. But that little face diaper you buy 2 for $1 at Walmart, or that little cute thing your grandma put together, is not going to save you from a virus. Now, I think the deprivation of oxygen is catching up to some people and killing brain cells. It's all like, and look, why would you want a young child to wear a face mask for 7 hours a day in school, lowering their oxygen level in their blood and raising the CO2 level in their blood, unless you absolutely want dead or retarded children? I'm asking the question that nobody in government wants to answer, because those reprobate-minded fools can't see it. They're so scared of getting corona from a kid, they'll kill the kid. Of course, we have abortion, so nothing would surprise me. But here's a classic example. A mother in Texas. Now, Texas generally is a pretty sane state, but I can guarantee you not in Harris County, Texas, where this occurred. This woman stuffed her 13-year-old son in the trunk of her car. Why? Because he had tested positive for COVID-19 on one of those unreliable home kits. And she didn't want to get exposed. Now, this reprobate-minded fool, age 41, should know better. Now, can you guess what she does for a living? No, she's not in the medical field, even worse. She's a teacher, a high school teacher. Though she may lose that job. She had a warrant issued for her arrest this past Friday on child endangerment charges, and the school has placed her on administrative leave. And if they bring her back, she's a danger to any student in her class. Firing her would be too sensible, so don't doubt it. The unions and the leftists that run Harris County will make sure she is turned into a coronavirus hero. Meanwhile, can you imagine the trauma this kid had being thrown in the trunk of a car and being driven to a COVID test site by his lunatic mother? This is what the reprobate mind looks like. This is what Satanism and leftism does. It ruins your common sense. There's more than one way to take care of this problem. Throwing your kid dangerously in the trunk of your car because you're a stupid parent and a high school teacher to boot, well, I'm sorry. You not only need to lose your job, you need to lose your parental rights because you have no business raising a child. This is insane. And we see these kind of stories all over, repeating time and time again with the mass COVIDians and those that believe the vaccine is the only answer, in spite of the numbers saying just the opposite. If you are reasonable and look at the numbers, I want to remind you that when I came in to emergency management after being retired almost 2 years ago, I came in with an open mind. I didn't have any predetermined anything. I was there to deal with an unknown situation in a pandemic with a virus we didn't know that much about that had come out of a lab in Wuhan. Yeah, we knew that back 2 years ago, though we were not allowed to talk about it that way. It was pretty strong evidence, but I'm sure we didn't want to upset the Chinese at that time. And so we didn't really push the Wuhan thing initially until more was known. And I can remember when I started this radio program, if I ever mentioned, I know that many of the programs that were pushed out to YouTube got censored and removed because I said the virus came out of Wuhan, a lab most likely. Bam, I'm gone. So none of this should be a surprise to any of us when you think about where we have gone over these 2 years. How many times has the narrative changed? And how many people run around in fear of this virus? They have their eyes wide open. They got their face mask on. And if you don't have yours on the way they want you to have it on, they're going to let you know about it. The mass COVIDians. It's a cult. It's a cult based on fear. And what's going to be interesting is as I really believe truth is exposed over the next several months, how many are going to hold on to the lie and believe the lie in spite of all the truth before them? This is going to be a separating of the sheep from the goats on multiple levels. In this time of what I call mass delusion, one thing is certain. The mainstream media, the mainstream networks have done their part to keep the disinformation campaign alive. Facebook always talks about their fact checkers and their COVID information center. You say anything about COVID or a vaccine, there's always a disclaimer, if anybody's to look at your post, about how the vaccines are all carefully tested and they're safe and effective. Take yours today. They push this single-minded narrative even though it bucks against the truth. The truth says one thing, but the narrative says another. If you watch late night television, like Colbert, he's a complete moron. And I guess the lower your IQ, the better his program appears to you. I mean, he has a whole thing he spends a lot of time on doing what he calls the vaccine.
We are the vaccine. Get your shot right now in your arm. It won't hurt. Then go hug your mom. Get your shot. Hug your mom. Get your shot. Hug your mom.
And if you've ever watched this silliness, and I've only seen it a couple of times, but every time I see it, it gets more ridiculous with each passing day, with each passing week. Their reprobate minds thoroughly believe that these experimental, never-before-tested vaccines are 100% effective. You'll never get COVID-19. You won't spread COVID-19. Why? Because you got your double jab and a booster. and on it goes. Yet the numbers simply don't back up the claim. But people believe it. People advertise, I got my vaccine. Go get yours. We can do this together and win. Yet in places where, it was Dr. Fauci that last year, toward the end of last year, said if we ever get a vaccine, if we ever get to like 50% herd immunity, it's over. Well, you have some places where 80 and 90% of the population is supposedly fully vaccinated. And what's happening in those places? I mean, Scotland and the United Kingdom have been vaxxed as mandatory injections continue to roll out around the world. And here, what is so amazing is that 80% of all these supposed COVID deaths in the United Kingdom and in Scotland have been vaccinated individuals. Well, that pretty well equals the percentage of people that are vaccinated. Well, that ought to tell you something. There's something that just doesn't add up about any of this. Are the vaccines really doing their job? Then you see a triple vaccinated Swiss Olympic athlete is diagnosed with myocarditis. Probably will never able to be competing again in her sport. She's 31 years old. Never had a health issue. And she was really big. She still can't connect the dots about the vaccine. Even though we have seen this over and over and over again, we're being told to expect, heart disease in children collapsing with a stroke is normal. In Spain, they're putting out all these defibrillators all over the place because people are having all these unexplained heart failures at a young age. There's never been the number of people collapsing, fainting, and having heart attacks in the sport of, they call it football in Europe, we call it soccer here in the United States. They've never seen the likes of this before. But we're told to believe that this is thoroughly normal. Not a problem. Nothing to see here. Now we have hospitals across the United States. They're turning to foreign nurses because healthcare workers in this country are being fired. Remember, they were the real heroes last year. Remember, 2000 and 2020 and 2021, these nurses, frontline doctors, they were out there every day dealing with the overwhelmed hospitals. They were the heroes. Now they're zeros. They're outcast. They're treated like Hitler treated the Jews during 1930 for not taking an experimental vaccine. Even those that came down with COVID-19 and recovered, they're still demanding they get vaccinated. This is insanity. You have people like in the Billings Clinic in Montana, they have contacts with 24 international nurses. And they're going to have to bring in people from overseas because they're firing thoroughly competent nurses that probably know more than these idiotic administrators and those that have sold their Hippocratic oath for money and power. How many doctors are buying the lie just to keep their license alive, their right to practice in a certain hospital alive? They're being coerced. They're being forced against their will in many cases, and they remain silent. The VAERS system that's supposed to report vaccine injuries or deaths, it's being discouraged. It's a behemoth system that is a total bear to operate. And if you're trying to fill something out and you need to pause and get information, it'll reset itself. You got to start all over. Everything is designed to make sure you don't use it. And I'm reading numbers that I'm beginning to believe are true. Can't prove it yet. But a cursory look is beginning to make it seem possible that if we think we have, let's say, 20,000 people dying of the vaccine, it may be more like 800,000. 800,000. Look, there are people that died very suspiciously shortly after their second injection, and they died at a rate vastly out of proportion to what normally would have happened in prior years. People that were in great health suddenly keeling over in a matter of days. It ought to make you concerned. In Toronto, because you have a lot of EMT people being told they can't work because they don't have the poison in their bloodstream, the experimental vaccine. A gal named Scarlett Martin, she was an exemplary paramedic for 23 years, fired, no vaccine. So there are fewer ambulances on the road in the city of Toronto because a lot of these people are not taking it. Why? Because they already had COVID. They don't want to take the risk of being part of a worldwide experiment on an emergency use authorized vaccine. And I don't blame them. I really don't. I wouldn't do it either. And then here in the United States, you got to add the misinformation that came out of 3 of the United States Supreme Court justices that shows just how either A, misinformed, how senile, or how reprobate-minded they are, making up facts that can't even be found. Even CNN, can't abide by what was said. 750 million cases a day. This came out of Justice Breyer. The man needs to retire. He needs to leave the court. He's unfit. Justice Sotomayor, coming up with numbers that are just incredibly wrong. Believing firmly that if you get vaccinated, you can't come down. She really believes that if you are vaccinated, you'll never come down with COVID and you'll never spread it. She believes that. Well, we know for a fact that is simply not true. Never was true, never will be true. And now in the age of Omicron, here's another little, we mentioned this yesterday, I'll mention it again. It appears that the vaccinated are the ones really coming down with Omicron a little bit more seriously than the non-vaccinated. Doesn't make any sense. There's some stories out there I'll share in the other half hour, some of the happier news. But there's another story that does concern me. And I'm beginning to see the telltale signs even in our stores in the great state of Florida. Could there be a food crisis in our future? Have you noticed that meat prices are up? And I've seen in some stores, not as many containers of eggs on the shelf. And you have some places, especially in blue states, where you're shipping and everything else even worse. Some American supermarkets are reporting incidents of bare shelves as fears grow over an imminent meat and egg shortage amid this the surge in Omicron cases. I've never understood this mentality, and I used to talk about it a lot when I worked in talk radio, especially in the Carolinas. All you have to do is say the word snow flurry, and everybody will be, rushing to the store, and you won't find milk or bread anywhere. It'll disappear off the shelves in seconds. We get worried, and we put a test on our supply chain system, which I think it's a marvel on one hand, but a danger on the other. It's a marvel that we can plan so carefully to have enough product on the shelves so we don't have too many things just sitting around, and so things tend to move. That's good. But we have discovered that when there's a supply chain interruption of any kind, we had no backup. We have no extra. We have nothing for the rainy day. Go back in the Bible. You remember the story? How Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his brothers, ended up in Egypt, and over time discerned the Pharaoh's dream of this. Pharaoh had seen these 7 fat cows, and then later 7 very thin and dying, emaciated cows, and wanted to know what the dream meant. And Joseph said there's going to be 7 years of feast. During that time, take a portion of the grain and set it aside. We'll have bumper crops. We need to be ready for the 7-year of famine. And I think one of the problems with our entire supply chain methodology is we never plan for something going wrong. We don't have plans for when the roads are impassable for a longer period of time, or cyber criminals can stop the flow of oil for gasoline and home heating products. We don't have a backup plan to deal with those kind of things. So the slightest interruption can cause havoc in our system. And that's one of the bad sides of our technology. You know, it works, but when things go wrong that the computer can't fix, we're stuck. We're stuck. You know, we're coming to a time, like I say, I firmly believe that we're going to have this veil pulled back. And for a window of time, the truth is going to be exposed. And I think the majority of people will see it. But there'll still be a very entrenched, significant minority, maybe 30, maybe 40%, that have chosen to believe the lie. And they will be given over to a reprobate mind and mass delusion. They'll never see the truth because they can't see the truth. They're the ones that believe gender is fluid. I mean, a guy can say I'm a girl and reduce his testosterone level for a while and then compete in swimming, and I'm a girl. And if you say otherwise, the recent Jeopardy winner, you know, the biggest female winner is a dude. I'm sorry, he's a guy. He looks like a guy. Just because his mental illness makes him want to believe he's a woman doesn't mean he is. And if you dare question it, the cancel culture will come after you with a vengeance. Then over the weekend came this story out of good old California, a state where smart people are leaving. And this ought to show you how the reprobate mind works. If you never understood it, this story is going to help you. The California Department of Public Health issued new guidance allowing hospitals and health networks, ready for this, to force COVID-positive healthcare workers to continue working if they are asymptomatic. Okay? Can't have unvaccinated people in there, but we can have COVID-positive healthcare workers being told they have to work or else. They're calling this a temporary fix to help hospitals and emergency services provide, staffing with all these fired or, terminated unvaccinated that never posed a risk to begin with. And so hospitals are doing this because they fired otherwise competent workers, many of which had COVID in the past, and their natural immune system. But no, that's not good enough. You have to have the vaccine. This is insane. When does this insanity come to an end? Now listen, on the other side of this break, I've got, I'll put it this way, a rapid-fire sequence of stories. Some will make your blood boil, some are going to encourage you, and the others will say, "Come, Lord Jesus, hurry and come." Now, as we go to this break, real quick, if you can help us financially as we continue to raise money to stay on shortwave, I really want to see, and I'll talk about that maybe more on Thursday's program, why I believe radio is so important. While the internet is wonderful, we need to keep this other door open. You know, more people have come to find this program on the radio, on shortwave, than ever would have found it as a podcast. And I can honestly tell you that the vast majority of those that listen as a podcast found it first on radio. That tells me that radio is still viable, that God is allowing his people to find an alternate means of communication. If you believe in our ministry, consider a check made payable to Ancient Word Radio and mail that to Truth to Ponder, 5753 Highway 85 North. That's 5753 Highway 85 North, number 3248. Number 3248 in Crestview, Florida. 32536. That's Crestview, Florida. 32536. As I mentioned yesterday, for whatever reason, the mail is not moving as quickly around the country as it once was. Maybe you've noticed it. I've been noticing it, that some mail that came directly to our home, it took approximately 15 days. 15 days. And it's not from that far away. That's United States mail. So if you send a check and it doesn't seem to clear that quickly, you can blame the United States Postal Service, just so you know. By the way, you can support us from the website too, which is truth2ponder.com. Truth2ponder.com.
That's it.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
Going to talk about something close to your heart. Shalom Aleichem. This is the nice Jewish boy, Jonathan Kahn, your Jewish connection, bringing you the riches of your Jewish roots in Jesus. Now get your pen out as fast as you can so you don't miss out on receiving a special free gift you're going to get and love in a moment. Now, you talk to some people in the Lord and they'll tell you, hey, I'll share the gospel with anybody. I'll share with cannibals. I'll go to New Guinea. I'll share with mass murderers and serial killers and Nazis and headhunting New Guinea neo-Nazi Ku Klux Klan cannibals. So you'll share with anybody. Any people, Well, anyone but one group. There's one group. They must be pretty scary. Who are they? My family. Don't ask me to share with that group. I'll share with any other. Give me the cannibals, but not my family. Imagine you're drowning and you're yelling help, and the lifeguard says, sorry, I can't save you. Why not? Well, you're a relative. I make it a policy not to save family members. It's too awkward. It causes too much problem. Sorry, goodbye. Could that be you? Could you be expressing your faith all over the place, but not with your own family? You're showing love and forgiveness and patience and peace and radical mercy and unconditional agape. You're loving your enemies, but all outside of your home. Remember the Great Commission. It started in Jerusalem, then to the world. How about taking all that love and that patience and that radical forgiveness and radical warmth and boldness and zeal and bring it to the most radical place, your home? You'll get to the headhunting neo-Nazi, New Guinea, cannibal, Ku Klux Klan members, but first, bless your family. Want more? Ask for, therefore go. How'd you like to be faster than a speeding bullet, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound? Well, how about move mountains? Well, you can. With Sapphires, the super spiritual supplement for a super life with God, plus the incredible Mystery of the Temple Doors, all free. How do you get all this? Easy. Just remember Jesus' real Hebrew name, Yeshua, and you dial it, and you'll get it free. Just dial 1-800-YESHUA-1. You will be blessed, but call now. That's 1-800-YESHUA-1. And I invite you to join me in the Great Commission to bring salvation back to the Jewish people and reach millions of unreached peoples around the world on 5 continents. Just call 1-800-YESHUA-1. You can actually blanket the earth through shortwave radio with the gospel. We do it every week. It's incredible. It's YESHUA-1, Yeshua-1. Or write me direct. You can do it. Just write to the Nice Jewish Boy at Box 1111, Lodi, Lodi, New Jersey, 07644. That's Box 1111. That's Lodi, Lodi, New Jersey, 07644. Till next time, this is Jonathan Kahn saying, love your family. Shalom Aleichem. Peace be to you, my friend, in Messiah. Sar Shalom, the Prince of Peace.
This is Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman.
And welcome back to part 2 of our Tuesday edition of Truth to Ponder. And I am your host, Bob Bierman. Now, I've got a mixture of stories. I want to get right into them without spending a whole lot of time. And I want you to listen carefully to what's happening around the world, both good and bad. And these stories are going to come fairly rapid fire. Now, for example, in Lebanon, there's a lot of people protesting. They've had just about all they can stand. And this is all current. There are hundreds in protest in Lebanon against new measures that are targeting the unvaccinated. Yet we see stories also coming out of these soccer players suffering heart attacks during critical matches, and this is happening almost every week. Now, when's the last time you ever, especially if you watch international soccer, how often do you see a guy collapse and have a heart attack and be taken off the field or die? I mean, this is the nonsense that is going on. Australia, a deranged father attacks a jogger in a park, saying he was getting within, a couple of meters of him. So he beats him up. This is the kind of reprobate, scary mind that's going on in the world today. We have had 2 years of this mass formation to make people go crazy. They're in such fear. Like I said yesterday, in Germany, they were masters at this. How else would the German people go along with the war that Hitler started, or attacking Jewish people like they were, evil vermin? Mass formation, control of the media. And if you look at this legitimately, too many people are sold out to, quote, social media, their own little echo chamber. And if they're regular watchers of CNN or MSNBC, they're hopeless. They're hopeless. We're seeing this, somebody said the dreaded vaccine zombie apocalypse, these raging mass COVIDians. And there was a story, and I want to quickly share just a couple of highlights. When we talk about this mass formation, and most of you that listen are hopefully immune because you've done enough research and you've seen both sides of the issue and you can weigh it out rationally. Okay, to understand how this could even happen, you have to figure out what kind of person is gullible enough to take these vaccine shots and keep taking them after the evidence of the harm they are doing is obvious. Now, these are supposedly smart people, and they finally realized how dangerous taking their jab was. They stopped. But they were oblivious, but there are those that are oblivious that keep begging for more. Now, what kind of person can be easily manipulated? Well, those that are influenced by deceptive claims in the mainstream media, well, they're quickly driven to fear. They're the kind that buy lottery tickets because they don't understand mathematics. The odds are against them. Look at the fine print. The odds are like 284 million to 1. But people are still going to, this is their retirement plan. I've seen it all the time. By the way, if you've ever had to go into a convenience store and you get behind somebody buying a lottery ticket, you may be waiting a while. They can't make their mind up. They just can't. Something else I've noticed, people that are easily pushed into mass formation, they tend to eat a lot of highly processed junk food because they think they're saving my money by saving money because they're purchasing all this processed garbage with coupons rather than buying real food that deliver far more nutrition. They have a lot of branded products at home, products that are really not that great for your health. You pay for the name. I see a lot of people, they buy the name. Many of these same individuals who are running around there telling you got to get vaccinated have poor financial management skills, and they're perpetually broke. They always have a catastrophe or crisis, and they claim it's never their fault. They waste their money on low deductibles for car insurance because they haven't figured out how insurance works. They think they need insurance for every little thing. Yeah, I mean, I've bought extended warranties on certain vehicles because I knew the potential history. Then I knew what the odds were. But there's sometimes it's just not worth doing. The cost of the insurance will pace the cost of repair. And these are the kind of people that they only care about their health. They don't care about yours. They only care about their health. That's why you must wear a mask to protect me. They don't believe their mask is going to help them, but yours will help. They don't really believe their vaccine is protecting them if they're demanding you take yours. I mean, if their vaccine worked, why would they want you to take it? Why do I need to wear a heavy winter jacket to keep you warm? Why do I need an allergy medicine that I need to take to stop you from sneezing? It doesn't make any sense. And they love getting on Facebook with their little selfies showing, I got my booster shot. And they're the first ones, the Karens of COVID, the mass COVIDians, that'll chase you everywhere if you're not wearing a face diaper. Now, there's something I read this statistic, and I'm gonna normally I wouldn't share this stuff with you because I haven't vetted it out, but I'm beginning to wonder. I'm beginning to wonder about this one. So listen to me carefully. I'm not saying this is, but there's some that are beginning to think that there are a lot more people dying each month from the vaccine itself, and there are those that believe it will continue to accelerate dramatically through this year and beyond. And some think that we're going to start witnessing a mass casualty event of vaccinated doctors, journalists, scientists, big tech workers, Wall Street people, city managers, public school teachers, that'll die for these unexplained reasons from these vaccine injections. And once again, this is what some people are saying. I can't quite reconcile their numbers. I do believe a lot of people, a lot more than they'll ever admit, will die of these vaccines. And it'll only be made worse by the additional booster after booster after booster. Now, we've all heard the expression, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. So, we said back in January of 2021, have your 2 shots and done, or your Johnson & Johnson and you're good to go. Biden promised, if you've been fully vaccinated, take off your face mask. Didn't work that way, did it? Many scientists believe, and I think this makes a lot of logical sense, that these experimental vaccines are forcing mutations. And there are others that look at Omicron and wonder, is this been released to undo this pandemic? Because the symptoms are rather mild for the vast majority of people, regardless of your age. And I'll be sharing a really important story in just a couple of days. So on that, could this possibly be the way that COVID comes to an end? Have those in power, why are they in such a rush to get you vaccinated? A lot of it has to do with control. And I'm a firm believer, the more that I've read, I will admit, I can be a skeptic until I feel comfortable with the data. I don't take everything somebody tells me at face value until I check it out. There's some people saying that 100,000 vaccine takers in America will die each month. I don't know if it'll be that high, but I'm not saying it can, and I'm not saying it can't. Only time is going to tell. But I know that there's this extreme rush to get everybody vaccinated. When you have to use late night comedians like Stephen Colbert to push the issue with stupid little things like this.
Mr. Sandman, get the vaccine so that you don't get COVID-19. It doesn't matter, Moderna or Pfizer. Just get one so your grandma doesn't die, sir. Sandman, go get the jab. It's safe, it's made by scientists in a lab. I can't stand this quarantine. So, Mr. Sandman, please get the vaccine.
What has always been concerning to me in recent months and during last year was this one-size-fits-all solution to the COVID-19 crisis. The only thing we're supposed to all do, and we're told to do it, we have been persuaded, we've been encouraged, and now we're being, in many places, forced. You'll lose your job. You won't be able to go to the grocery store. You're going to become a non-person. You're going to become, you might as well put on the yellow star or act like a leper, declaring yourself unclean as you walk around society so people can stay away from the unvaccinated. It's come to the point of ridiculous. One of the things that has been questionable to me since almost 2 years ago were how are we suddenly having these so-called test that can prove someone had COVID-19. And so many people kept telling me, doctors and others, and then I saw the video for myself of the inventor of the PCR test who mysteriously died not long before the COVID-19 pandemic, who stated you should never use a PCR test as your single diagnostic for anything. It's only an additional tool to help you, because what it is, a PCR test is multiplying whatever it finds as a viral fragment. And there are many that are making the claim, and I tend to believe them, that we've never really isolated the full COVID-19 genome and the fact that it's morphing. A physician I talked to a few weeks ago made a fascinating statement to me. He said, Bob, I almost laugh when I hear people like Dr. Fauci and others talking about, well, this is the 10th or the 20th variant. And he said, in real science, we're taught that there are thousands upon thousands of variants that occur naturally with virtually any kind of virus. And a coronavirus in particular, you go back to 2003, 2004, there was a brief outbreak. You didn't hear much about it. It kind of was maintained, and it morphed itself down and out of view, as many coronaviruses do. Now, there are those that believe that the Omicron variant was released to end the COVID-19 pandemic. And for those that can try to control the New World Order, they're not happy about that because they thought they were going to get an upper hand here. And I think that's why there's this almost death rattle wish to hurry and get everybody vaccinated. And everybody needs a digital ID. And no, 5G does not talk to the vaccines. And that's another topic we'll have to talk about. People send me stuff all the time about 5G and the vaccines. All of it is idiotic nonsense. I've got people that say, well, I had this one lady say, well, I have a son who works for Martin Lockheed. Okay, what does he do there? Well, it has nothing to do with anything that would know about 5G, but he's a smart kid. You know, there's so many what I call boogeymen put out there to deceive you, to confuse us, to divide us. And this 5G and COVID nonsense is exactly that. It's going to go the way of QAnon. It's going to rapidly fall apart and dissipate, and people will run away saying, oh, I never listened to him. Well, I can honestly say I never listened to him from the beginning, and I warned you a year and a half ago something didn't smell right, designed to make you look foolish. Now, we'll deal with the 5G issues some other day. I'll say this much, and every other engineer that I know, well-versed engineer, knows the greatest danger is how fast it can move that data. And why do you think they want a digital ID? And it's not going to be in the vaccine. The vaccine's just a cover story. And you need your passport. So you get your vaccine. Then you have to have your passport. You have to have your app on your phone. You know, none of this is reading anything, and it will not read anything out of your bloodstream. Believe me on that one. Don't fall for the trap, because that's designed to make you look foolish. They'll find something else when it's not the vaccine you're going to have to participate in. And I predict the next thing will be currency, money. Yeah, money. Now that we have this illegal economy, you see, you got the IRS in the United States. They're wanting to look at all transactions of $600 or higher. Well, that's going to force people back to cash. And that'll force the government to say cash is bad. And so now you're going to have to get rid of your cash, and you'll need, well, if you want to spend money, you're going to have a digital ID so we can verify your transactions. This is where it's going. You know, so 5G can help move the data quicker than it could before. It also moves your email faster. It also gives you better video. It's just Wi-Fi for the cell phone industry at high speed. That's all it is. And there's no super new frequencies never used by mankind before. We took part of the C-band satellite, the upper part of UHF television, and moved things around a little bit to make the channels that already existed wider for 5G. So don't fall for it. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get some evil emails saying, Bob, 5G is turning on the nanobot robots. They're going to read your brain scan. Stop it. Stop looking like an idiot, please. When I hear this stuff, I've worked around radio frequency energy for 47 years. I have built transmitters in the near 250,000 watt bracket. I've worked in low frequencies. I've worked in medium band. I've worked in HF. I've worked in UHF, VHF, and microwave. Yeah, I get what's going on. And when I hear some of the claims made, I have to shake my head. What did you do? Watch a 1953 really badly made sci-fi movie in black and white? This is where they wouldn't even use that plot in one of those kind of movies. It's so ludicrous. All right, pardon my rant on that one. We'll get back to that. But I've been suspect of the PCR test because the inventor said to be suspect. So what's the only test we had? In February, March, April, and May, and all the way until just the 31st of December of 2021. The PCR test. And depending upon the cycle threshold, we've talked about this before, you can create as many false positive tests as you want. And everything is a case. If you test positive, though you are not sick at all, and it really could be just old dead viral fragments that mean nothing, somehow you're COVID positive. And if you get killed in a car wreck or struck by lightning, you died of COVID. If you don't believe it, do some research of some of the people that died of gunshot wounds that are listed as COVID deaths all over the United States. Traffic accidents, stage 4 cancer. Somehow they tested positive, so it's got to be COVID. And this goes on and on and on with these false PCR tests that have been out there. No matter what the actual cause of death, it always had to be COVID. And so we have these inflated, phony numbers. People driven to fear. We're making kids wear face diapers and lower the oxygen level in their brains to make some teacher be less afraid to die of COVID. Well, Miss Teacher or Mr. Teacher, if you had your COVID clot shot, maybe you won't be dying of COVID, won't you? Isn't that what the shot's supposed to do? Teachers, some of these teachers today in public schools are the stupidest people on the face of God's green earth. They've sold their souls to Satan, and their minds are reprobate and devoid of logic. Period. The word vaccine and pandemic have been redefined in these past 2 years to keep the COVID scare going. These vaccines are experimental. There are people still believing that I got a Pfizer FDA-approved shot, and I'm going, where did you get it? Well, I saw the news conference back in the summer where, the FDA made a big announcement that Pfizer is now FDA approved. No, it isn't. They approved the vaccine that, by the way, is not even licensed yet. You want to know why? Because they're not manufacturing it. And so you had this phony process with the FDA being a co-conspirator to fake an approval for a vaccine in record time, 100 days, 106 days. Though it'll take 75 years, they claim, to let you see the results. 75 years. But they were able to approve it in 106 days. Well, hopefully the judge, as I told you earlier, that ruled that they have to get that information out in, basically the next 8 months. I hope when the information comes out, it's not too late for too many. The biggest problem, and this, it goes back to the love of money is the root of all evil. These vaccines, under the authority they're given, they couldn't have it if there's anything else that can do a better job, like a treatment. We know there are treatments, but they've been effectively suppressed. The mainstream media has been part of this suppression, calling respected drugs like ivermectin horse dewormer, though it was invented for human beings long before the veterinarian world discovered it. They suppress it. They mock it. They make people think that using it makes you less than human, and they push their never-ending vaccine narrative. And what for what purpose? And by the way, you know why they want it? You know why Pfizer in particular? I don't trust Pfizer at all anymore. I just have no respect. Look at how much airtime they buy. Bought to you by Pfizer. Bought to you by Pfizer. You and I have heard that one over and over again. They own the media. They buy it. Too many people that were on the board of Pfizer are on the approval board of the FDA. Something wrong with that picture. And they really want to get these things approved for children because, see, that does something that they can't get right now. They're getting it under the emergency use where they're, they can't be sued. They want the COVID clot shot to be given to children as part of the children regimen, and they want it approved. And that guarantees them a mega billions of dollar profits forever once it becomes on the long list of shots for kids. Yeah, we'll get into that maybe later this week. I've got more on that story. You've got an illness with an incredibly high survival rate, and you have a lot of people that supposedly died of it that didn't. But we're told they died of COVID. Yes, my 87-year-old grandmother died of COVID. Okay? And why was she in a nursing home to begin with? Because she was in good health? I mean, I want you to think about this. Most of these deaths occurred in nursing homes, average age 83. And so we're trying to make everybody afraid of a 7-year-old or a 5-year-old and put a face diaper on them, and you want to vaccinate these kids with something that could destroy their immune system. What kind of reprobate are you? Our world is run by reprobates, and I believe the light is about to be exposed on their evil deeds. And they're going to be scrambling to try to cover up all that they have done. Why the sudden rush? Why does Italy want everybody mandatory over 50 vaccinated? How many people do they want to have dead in this world? You know, I've challenged some of the stuff that I hear from people that put on podcasts and videos you send me. I think the real danger is when you come back to take the second, third, and fourth shot. Now, here in the United States, last that I looked, of those that have taken their full dosage, only about a third of those that have taken it have even shown any consideration about getting a booster. Almost 2/3 are not interested. Maybe they are beginning to see the light. And I think when this truth is exposed, a lot of people, there's going to be some gnashing of teeth and people going, what did I do to myself? Well, today's program covered a lot of the things I wanted to. I never got to everything I had. But we need to end on a word of encouragement. I mean, as a believer in Christ, I put my trust in Him, not Dr. Fauci. I put my trust in Him, not the government. The Bible says, do not put your hope in princes or the sons of men. Don't put your hopes in an election. We need to put our hope in Jesus Christ. The church has been decimated because it just failed to respond. If you believe in what we're doing, would you consider supporting us financially? Our mailing address is Truth to Ponder, 5753 Highway 85 North. That's 5753 Highway 85 North, number 3248. 5753 Highway 85 North, number 3248. We are in Crestview, Florida. Crestview, 32536. That's Crestview, Florida. 32536. And as I said, until we get together again, may God bless you, may God open your eyes, and may He sustain you in His more than able hand.
This has been Truth to Ponder with Bob Bierman. To find out more, visit our website, truth2ponder.com. That's truth2ponder.com. Truth to Ponder, shining the light of truth in a darkening world.